It's been a long time coming, but we are finally reaching the endgame of Western OWCS with the beginning of Stage 4 this week. The group stage plus the main tournament will be played over the next handful of days, and by the end of it, we'll know who is going to DreamHack Sweden, both from EMEA and NA, and Stage 4 in particular holds a lot of weight to it because whoever gets first place is going there automatically. Knowing the stakes and the overall parity, I can't think of a better place to start this week's preview with than EMEA itself. Here's my preview, hype up, and breakdown of the Stage 4 EMEA groups. Here's your 16 rosters that made it this far. As you can see, there's a lot of familiar names making their appearance once again, a couple of new ones in the mix as well, but generally this is looking to be a solid group of 16, and I'm interested to see how a couple of these groups go in particular. Let's dive right into it, starting off with Group A. This is going to be ENCE's group. They won Stage 3, so they're the top seed, and they get the easiest group. And there's no changes going with ENCE this time around. They have their roster locked in. This is probably how it's going to stay for the rest of the season. And of course, they are a pretty loaded team still. They're coming off a reasonably solid Stage 3 where they won in convincing fashion. They finally got that first place under their belts after choking multiple times in a row. Massive relief on their end for sure. And I'd expect them to be right in the mix yet again. Obviously, the groups are going to be nothing for them. But looking beyond that at the landscape, they should be right in the thick of it to potentially get first place yet again. I think the current meta suits them reasonably well. Kai's been someone they've been very reliant on throughout this season, but I think subbing him out for Waymon won't be the worst idea. The double flex meta is something to be on the lookout for, and I think Kev and him will probably do a good job, as we've seen in a lot of games in the past. They could run a lot of good combos and make up for any lack of playmaking that you may have had with Kai. Meanwhile, I think that the current support outlook is pretty favorable for them. I think Skyrip and Kelix have never really been known as these extremely good playmakers. They're not someone that you can heavily rely on to make the big plays for you in the clutch. So I think going towards like a Brig Juno setup may actually be pretty suitable for them, at least on paper. So overall, I'd still feel pretty good about this ENCE team, although it is worth noting they did lose to SSG in the most recent Face It League finals. SSG got their revenge in this particular meta setup, so something to note moving forward. It won't affect them here in the groups, but later on, you never know. As for who is joining ENCE out of Group A into the main tournament, I think the other three candidates all have a realistic shot because of their own specific strengths that they possess. After a bit of a break, Quick Esports are making their return to EMEA, and they actually got 4th place in the Swiss stage, not too shabby at all, and they're full of a lot of players who played on some other noteworthy teams in other EMEA stages. Ken used to play on Oh Yeah and was one of their better players. Lauren had some good performances on Ex Oblivione as well as Peace and Love. Hitori was on Supershine, was usually pretty reliable on that tank. Yoham was on Game and Gladiators. Lots of noteworthy players on this team that makes for a reasonably good core. A well-balanced roster like this can usually go a long way, and maybe their overall strength will be enough to prevail over the other opponents in this group. But since they are a relatively new roster still, that could put them at a disadvantage compared to the other teams they're going up against. Wasp, XONO, and Vendetta were both teams that made it into the Stage 3 groups. Wasp in particular is a pretty hard team to get a grasp on. They're a wild card. They were competitive in Stage 3, and a lot of it has to do with their strange, unprecedented style of play. They're a total wild card, and if you're not ready for that unusual play style, they may just leave you in the dust. It's such a strange combo, but they always find a way to make it work. I mean, they got 5th place in the Swiss stage, so they didn't do too bad at all. Now, the only thing is, it may be a bit harder to embrace that chaos and find the value that we saw in Stage 3, since we are seeing less of that dive, and we are seeing more of the rush style. That fast-paced Ramatra Juno setup, that's what teams are starting to favor, and obviously that ain't going to be too good for Wasp X Oh No. I don't know how they're going to find a lot of value with Ball when everyone's grouped together, playing together the way they are. Maybe he can go for the backline and make it work and cause some chaos. Maybe him and Gert can pull a miracle out of their butts. But it's going to be a challenge. They're already underdogs as it is, and I think the current meta outlook even more puts them in that type of light. With that said, a team like Vendetta may stand a better chance of knocking out Quick because they'll play more of the standard, and again, I feel like they have a pretty good foundation at DPS. They're still rocking with Cookie in China, which I can definitely get behind, but the thing is, this team massively underplayed compared to their potential in Stage 3. They didn't look too hot. They dropped maps when they honestly shouldn't have. I was very disappointed in what I saw. And it seems like they're slipping up more, as they got literally the final spot, the final possible spot in the Swiss. They got 12th place. I feel like this team should be better, but they're slipping more than anything else. They're not showing all that much improvement, so I don't know if I'm confident enough for them to knock out the likes of Quick or even Wasp. So when it's all said and done, I think in Group A, the most reasonable picks are ENCE and Quick. Honestly, for me, it's between Quick and Wasp. I think it could go either way between those two, and I'd love to see them get pitted up in a match against each other. But again, the standard is just going to prevail here in my eyes. With where we are with Rush and being grouped together in that brawl scenario, it's not going to be as ideal for Wasp. It's going to be harder to be successful, even if they have made it work in Swiss. Like, it's just a different situation here. Plus, Quick, again, they just have a lot of players that I trust in these scenarios. A lot of them have proven themselves in other stages, and while they are relatively new, I think they will come together and find a way to get this win. I'm confident in their DPS, I'm confident in their tank, and I think their supports can do enough as well. Anyway, looking into Group B, this one's going to be led by Virtus Pro, and there's a good mix of pretty noteworthy rosters out there. Obviously, Virtus are the favorites. They are an incredible team. They seem to be peaking at just the right moment. But alongside them, you got Team Peps, Meta Boys, and a one-man army, all very prevalent participants in previous stages. Now, you may be looking at Team Peps and be thinking that it's the former Game and Gladiators team that's no longer under that name, but you would in fact be wrong. This is Team Peps with a completely different roster. It is an all-French roster, in fact. They've got Pac, they got Stelios, they've got FD-God, they got Zerion. It is not a bad team in the slightest, and they actually got top 3 in the Swiss stage, which I'm not too surprised about. Again, just knowing that things are kind of rush-oriented right now, this kind of feels like the right setup for a team like this. Pac, he's been a part of some successful rush teams in the past. FD-God, he likes to put up the tempo. This seems like a good situation for this team. This might be the most ideal meta and the best chance for them to get out of their group. Make no mistake though, it's not going to be easy for them to advance in this group. Meta Boys and a one-man army have been staples of the EMEA Swiss, and to a certain extent the groups. One-man army in particular showing a pretty good peak in Stage 3, pulling off that upset against Game and Gladiators, and making a fairly decent bracket run. Avo and Top Dragon have shown they are a pretty deadly duo at DPS. Theomatic has done his thing on the dive role, and they still got Donghoon as well. It's not a bad team at all. They managed to get 6th in the Swiss stage. They're still hanging around. They're still maintaining relevance, and it wouldn't be surprising if they make it out of this group yet again. Now, with that said, a lot of their success in Stage 3 came through a good dive. Now that dive is a bit less prevalent, I'm curious to see if the talent can make up for the potential struggles ahead. In all likelihood, it's either them or Team Peps. Those are going to be the two teams to look out for to get second. No offense to Meta Boys. It's cool that they're here again. I love the persistence. Maybe there's a chance they finally take that next step. But I was waiting to see that happen in Stage 3, and it just didn't. They still aren't where they need to be, and I'm a little concerned this is about as far as they can get, making it to groups. I don't know if there's any other peak aside from that for this team. I don't know if there's enough talent. I respect them for making it here for the 3rd time in a row, but I doubt anything's going to come of it, sadly. My projection for Group B is going to be Virtus Pro, of course, getting 1st place. This team is absolutely nasty, and I think Shockwave and Sauna are going to put work in this current meta. But alongside them, I am penciling in Team Peps. And my main reason for picking them over a one-man army is 1, because I think this meta makes a bit more sense for their playstyle and what plays up to their strengths, but 2, I believe these two teams did square off in the Swiss stage, and Peps won pretty convincingly. So going off of that, I would trust in them to be the favorites and make it through. Looking into Group C, this one is my favorite, and it's for one specific reason. We've got SSG and SR Peak Check in the same group. It is a dream come true. Two of the most famous Reinhardt players ever have an opportunity to play against each other. So long as both of them take care of business in the opening match, they would be on track to meet each other in a winner's final matchup. And just knowing them, I'm sure they would honor each other with that Rein duel, at least one time. I don't think SSG would be bad sports with them. It's just too good to pass up on with the content and with Pride and everything. It would be epic. We need it to happen. Please, Hottie and alexyOWL have some kind of gentleman's agreement. We need it. For this group, though, I'd consider it to be the group of death. This is a pretty nasty 4-team combo that we've got going on, headlined by SSG, who are looking to make their big comeback after falling short in Stage 3. I feel like their confidence is slowly but surely building right now, which is great. As I mentioned earlier in the video, they were able to beat ENCE fairly convincingly and win Faceit League Season 2 in this current meta that we see. It seems like Funny Astro is enjoying the challenge of playing Juno, and it plays a lot up to his style of being aggressive and fast-paced. We know that Space Station likes the rush style. Playing less Diva is always a great thing as well. This team is in great shape, especially considering they added another weapon to this team. Joining them on the tank line is the legend himself, KSA. He is back in action after taking a break from Twisted Minds and all the drama that went on with Yubi. This man is back and ready for revenge, and he joined arguably the best possible team he could have. Space Nation needed a guy like him. We saw them struggling so much in that setup with Diva during Stage 3, and with her still being pretty good right now, KSA can come in right away, not miss a beat, and be a beast. He's one of the best tank players in EU. I can't think of a more clutch pickup than this to make up for the holes in Hottie's game. He's another nasty player, another nasty playmaker in their repertoire, and it just might push Space Station into being the clear-cut #1 team in EU. I am very excited to see what happens after group's end. Who joins them out of this group, though, is a bit of a mystery. SR Peak Check, I mean, with Rush being good right now, it's pretty awesome. I think even though they're going to be that Rein team, they'll make it work. I mean, they got second place in the Swiss stage, so that goes to show you that alexyOWL is thriving in that Juno-Rein combo, and they just might be able to be that weird team that makes it in without having to play the poor man's version of Rein, so to speak. The outlook just looks a lot more favorable compared to Stage 3. They're not so much of the odd men out, as they're going to stay grouped together. They're going to rely on that speed, going behind alexyOWL's shield to victory. They're going to be able to play a lot more Mei as well with how good she is. This is shaping up to be the best possible situation for SR Peak Check, and they just might be able to make it out of this group. There's certainly one team to look out for, though, that will make it a challenge for them to get out of their group, and that's Oblivione, formerly known as Hypnos. It's basically their sister team. They promoted that Hypno squad to their main roster, which is EXO, so you're going to see the return of Captain Prash and Zaro and all those guys, although you will notice there is no MCD. He has actually moved on to Twisted Minds and will be their new flex support player. He carried pretty hard with Azana for this team and made being so successful in that tournament bracket a possibility to begin with, so I'm very interested to see if they can make up for that lack of playmaking and continue to be strong in a new meta like this. I thought they played way above the bar I set for them in Stage 3, and I have confidence they can be a good contender in this group despite it being so loaded. The confidence is rising, and it would not be a shocker if they upset SR Peak Check, if you even want to call it that. I know SR Peak Check did really good during the Swiss stage portion, but EXO is not a team to scoff at. They're definitely at their level. Wouldn't be surprised at all if they get second place instead. They've matched up to some good teams so far. But in the end, I will be going with SSG and SR Peak Check to make it out of Group C. It just makes way too much sense in my eyes for them to not make it through. SSG for obvious reasons, but then SR Peak Check for very similar reasons. It's just the perfect playstyle for what they like to do. They like fast, they like playing rush, that's what they kind of made names for themselves with, and they like playing behind their tank players charging into battle. It makes too much sense for it to not come true, so I'm going all in. I want to see alexyOWL get to another tournament, so let's make it happen, baby. And finally in Group D, this feels like the most boring on paper for sure, as for whatever reason, Twisted Minds and the former Game and Gladiators team are once again in the same group. This time they're called Piece of Cake because Gaming Gladiators did separate from them, and they don't have the Team Pep's name for obvious reasons, so this is what they went with instead. Both teams went through some notable changes. With Twisted Minds, as mentioned previously, they're going from Vigilante to MCD, so it's a Bliss MCD support line. We've already seen this happen before in the Dallas days. It worked out fairly well for them, and it might give this team a bit of a boost as a result. The meta outlook looks pretty positive for them as well. The uptick in May is something they'll enjoy. They always like playing her. They can maybe get the Symmetra shenanigans going, ram divas where they want to be. It seems like Twisted Minds are going to regain their footing, and they're going to come back with a vengeance this stage, and they're going to need to be on their A game, because as of right now, they're actually on the outside looking in when it comes to punching their ticket to DreamHack Sweden. Virtus Pro has replaced them in the top 3 after having a really good performance in Stage 3. They're behind by like 50 points right now, so they've got to place higher than Virtus Pro or win this tournament outright, so I need to see them pop off here in the groups early on to develop that confidence. They need to dominate a Piece of Cake. I don't even want to see it be close. That's what they need if they want to rebound. They are running out of time. But Piece of Cake definitely are not a team to scoff at either. They made some interesting changes. There's no more Naga on this team, and their support line is looking a lot different than what it was in other variations, going with Silent Crispy rather than FD God and Yoham or Level 1 Crook. Bit of a different outlook for these guys, and I think they made an appropriate change by getting away from FD God because he just did not play well for them in Stage 3. That's a way to positively impact this team, hopefully, just because they don't have that much time left. They haven't been together for that long, so we'll have to see what happens there. I'm very interested to see how they match up with Twisted Minds. Honestly, in general, I want to see if they can be competitive again after making these changes. They were getting diffed, especially when it came to that support line, so hopefully that's taken care of, and they can avoid disaster like in Stage 3, where they looked completely and utterly boomed, not even making it out of their group. Some might worry that that could happen yet again, but I don't think so this time around. There's no one-man army to get in their way. It's just Team Gambit and Negative Mental Attitude, who you probably don't have all that much trust in to be competitive against these other two teams in this group. So honestly, you can just X in Twisted Minds and Piece of Cake. There's really no need to discuss it further, but it will be interesting to see how they do once we get beyond this point and how they do in an inevitable matchup with each other. And that essentially wraps up my thought process on the groups. The combatants are set. We're down to the final stage. Only 8 will move on with the opportunity to fight for DreamHack Sweden. Let me know your thoughts on these teams down in the comments below, who you're most looking forward to watching, and how you think these new rosters will shape up with some of the top teams making some notable changes. I'd love to hear all your thoughts. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and you want to stay up to date with all of the most recent Overwatch Champion Series action, do me a favor, give this video a like, and subscribe to the channel if you're new. And until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.